Hey, good evening, everybody. Back for another edition of Meteorology Lab, and I was having to take a break yesterday evening because things were pretty chaotic with the storms, and they were right near us, and it wasn't really a good idea for me to go on. So, things have really cleared up quite a bit here in this part of Texas, and let's take a look at what we had yesterday. We had some tornadic storms here in Texas, and this is the situation that we had about noon. So starting out, you can see an upper level system over the Texas Panhandle up into the Colorado and New Mexico area. And this is where the tropical moisture was across East Texas and the I-30 and I-20 area near Dallas. So if we zoom in on that, you can see some towering cumulus in that area. A few orphan anvils out around Rockwell, Garland, and Plano. Just off the top of the screen there. And then further south, these are the clouds that got going later during the day. And you see them towering a little bit right there. Now let me switch off to the GOES 16 data. This is the high-resolution next-generation imagery. Yeah, let me set that up here. I'm going to have to switch off the dehumidifier here real quickly, so give me a second to do that real quick. Okay, this is starting out about 19Z. This is going to be about 2 p.m. And the area that was affected by the tornadoes later during the evening was right here, Athens up to Canton. Okay, so you take a look out to the west, and you can see one little line of possible storms in the DFW area. This is closer to the surface cold front. So you can see that the line is starting to take shape around Fort Worth and Cleburne. A bit further out ahead of the line, we've got some towers going up east of Corsicana and towards Trinidad. So you can see those going up, and some fairly large anvils. So let's switch over to the radar and see what it was showing yesterday. Okay, this is shortly after the storms developed, and you can see we've got a couple of good cells down to the south, and then towards the Dallas area, there's a fine line associated with the cold front. And if we go up to the velocity, we can see that the zero line is oriented kind of like this right here. So this is showing we've got a northwest push of cool air from the Pacific. Then if we go out in this area, we can see a different zero line, and that's located right here. So in this area here we have inbounds, and here we've got outbounds. So in this zone right here we've got southwesterly flow. So this marks the location of the cold front right there in Dallas. But these storms are well out ahead of that, and storms out ahead of boundaries like this, those are the ones we really have to be concerned with. So let's take a look and see how these progressed. A couple of good embedded cells, and we'll take a look at the storm relative velocity. And we can see initially there's not a whole lot of circulation going on. There's this one area right here, 33 knots in and 19 out, and a little bit of convergence right there, but otherwise not too much going on. And it's only later during the sequence that we start getting some of the stronger motions, like right here around Trinidad. And there's another little couplet right there. And right around the same time, the storms were starting to put out 1-inch hail around the Gun Barrel City, Texas area. And let me take this on up to the higher tilt. So I'm going to go up to 5.1 and 6.5 in degrees. Let me show you the elevations down here at the bottom. This is the readout of where the cursor is, and you can see that we've got tops here almost up to 60,000 feet. So if we cut a three-dimensional slice, you can see these are well in excess, likely well in excess of 30,000 feet, or 60,000 feet. And we've got 50 dBZs well up above 40, almost 50,000 feet. So quite a storm here, and this is the inflow area right there. So quite a bit of overhang on the storm. So let's take that forward and see the progression of the storm. That moves northwest, and we can already see that we've got tornado warnings coming out for Henderson County here. Or, yeah, I think that's Henderson County. No, that's Van Zandt County there. Storm relative velocity showing a couplet here, and there's another one further down the line right here. So these are like 52 out, and I'm sorry, about 41 to 35 in, so that's going to be about 70 to 80 knots of rotation there. So just to kind of wrap this up real quickly, let me put up the city names and maybe a few roads. So you can see Interstate 20 right up near the top right here. So the first cell goes through the Canton area, and then for the rest of it, I'm going to have to load up the sequence here. And let me show you right around the time the damage was really starting to occur. And while that's loading, I'll show you the satellite sequence around that time. So again, Van Zandt County right there, where Canton is, and you can see that initial overshoot that I had earlier. That's right when that happened. So you can see quite a large, very voluminous overshoot on the top of that anvil. And these progress north up into the Canton area, and some pretty prominent overshoots. And then back to the radar. So you might be thinking the southern storm is what we would be looking for, but if you actually go to the storm relative velocity, we've got an embedded echo right there. A little bit of embedded, very strong rotation, and another one further south right here. So yeah, that southern storm does have a little bit of rotation, but it may be easy to miss this if you're not watching velocity, or if you're dealing with older radar units. So this is what produced the majority of the damage there in the Canton area, and that kind of tracks right up like that. And I believe that this one also was responsible for some damage south of Canton. So anyway, I don't have the EF ratings on this yet, but there are some video clips floating around on YouTube that you might want to take a look at. Almost a wedge there, certainly. So, all right, let me get my charts organized here. Oh yeah, I'll show you very quickly some of the model data. This is the NAM 3 kilometer for yesterday, and this is the 12Z model, and it's showing a forecast here for 4 p.m. So you can see that the model was a little bit off on that area of storms. It was actually kind of affecting this area. So some small details off on this model, and that the front was not so filled in with precip. Let me check the radar and see what that line looked like. Yeah, so it was more of a scattered, a broken line out there in the Dallas area. So some small details that are off, but let me bring up a forecast sounding. I'm going to click the cursor on the Athens Canton area, and you can see some very strong shear there on the hodograph. So from 0 through 1 kilometer, and the storm motion vector is right there. You can see that sweeps out a very large area from 0 through 1 kilometer. That's probably about a good 400 to 600 SRH value. And the significant tornado parameter showing SRH really standing out there, 0.38. LCL is also pretty high because of the very high humidities. CAPE is also high. If we actually modify this a bit and lift a parcel, we can see we've got probably good about 2,000 to 3,000 joules per kilogram. And then bulk wind difference, that's not so high. That's kind of on the low side. And that's because the storm motion vector right there, and then the top of the storm is right here, so it's only about a 10 to 20 knot difference. So very weak winds aloft, and that is causing problems with storm longevity and storm organization, so it's given this kind of ragged structure that we see here, but it's allowing HP-ish modes to prevail, where we do get some of this storm relativity to play into the situation and get us rotating storms. So some of those will be HP-ish there. Okay, so let's switch over to today and see what's going on. Clearing in Texas. We're looking at Oklahoma and Texas here. And this is showing Oklahoma, and Texas is being dry slotted. And I was able to get a interesting photo from a Reddit user. Let me bring that up real quick. That was this morning, believe it or not, in the Temple, Killeen area. And thanks to Sapper in Texas on the Texas subreddit for the permission to use that. I think that those are Indian paintbrush flowers, if I remember correctly. And aloft, you can see some of the alticumulus and patches of cirrus embedded in that strong jet flow pattern. This appears to be looking maybe north or northeast there, so those are probably departing the area and heading to the northeast there. So very neat shot there, and I wanted to use a photo of some snow showers in Amarillo, but I wasn't able to get permission from that. But you can see underneath all the cirrus, we've laid down a pretty good track of snow in southeast Colorado, right around Springfield and I'm trying to remember the names of the towns up there: Springfield, Campo, and Boise City, Guyman. And further south, they did get snow, but it did not stick at all. So there's probably a bit of a track going south of Dodge City along the Kansas-Oklahoma border. Okay, so kind of an unseasonably early, or unseasonably late, I guess you would call it, snowstorm there. A lot of the activity today is shifted off to the east, and we're finding that in Alabama. So tornado warnings up and down through there, all the way up to just east of Nashville. However, the storm risk here is marginal to slight. So that's probably helping to minimize a bit of the storm outbreaks in that area. So, okay, no watches in effect. I guess those must have dropped off. Yep, there they go. Okay, so we just got kind of an MCS down in that area. Let's take a look at the 250 millibar chart, and this is for this morning at 12Z. And we're seeing the polar front jet extending from Oregon down to about El Paso, into central Texas, and then northward into the Dakotas and Minnesota there. So that's a very meridional pattern right there, very deep upper level trough, and right here over the Texas Panhandle is where we have the cutoff low. So the center this morning about 7 a.m. was over the Guyman Elkhart Liberal area. At 500 millibars, you can see things kind of stacking downward towards the warm air. So now the center of our circulation is over Woodward. 120 knots out ahead of it at Oklahoma City right there. And the polar front jet running from about Del Rio to Arkansas. And then 700 millibars. So now we're stacking even further to the east-southeast. Right over Alva is where we have the 700 millibar low. And we tend to use this, again, for the capping. And we don't see any values. You can see we've cooled down quite a bit over Texas. Normally, 10 degrees Celsius is about where we have strong capping in place. The upper level destabilization has brought the temperatures down to about 0 across much of Texas there. However, out in Alabama and Mississippi, they've still got a little bit of a cap there. Temperatures of 10 up through this area right here, all the way out towards Tallahassee, and then maybe some 12s around Gulfport and Mobile right there. And then at 850 millibars, now we're starting to get down towards where the fronts are. Center of the circulation is over Wichita. And then the 850 millibar front is probably running something like this here. Looks like maybe our warm front is from about Chicago down to about Topeka, and then joining up with that low right there. And we've got very deep, moist flow off the Gulf right there. You can see 55 knot low-level jet from New Orleans up to Jackson, Mississippi. Some of it extending up towards Nashville right there. So possibly in between, maybe a 60 knot jet right there. Yeah, I can see Nashville right there showing 60 knot. So, yeah, there's our low-level jet. And you can see the dew points right there in the bottom left. Now, one problem when you use new sources of 850 millibar charts is some of them will use dew point depression. In other words, this value in the bottom left will be the difference between the dew point and the temperature. In this case, it's showing the actual dew point. And the way you can tell is just look up in Canada, anywhere where it's cold. If you have negative values up there, that's going to be dew point, because you can't have negative dew point depression. Okay, so knowing that this is dew point, we can read the values. We've got 12 Celsius at New Orleans, which is about 54 Fahrenheit. We've got 13, which is 55 at Birmingham. So a lot of the deeper moisture located right in that area. So those are where we would check the soundings to get an idea of our more unstable air masses. And then there's the 925 millibar chart. Now we're starting to drop a little bit below the low-level jet, but still 45 knot flow there in Alabama. So, and this is showing a little bit better the extent of the low-level moisture field. So lots of values above 15, all the way up to Arkansas, all the way up to Ohio, and pretty much covering all of that area. Okay, so this is up at about 2,500 feet here. Okay, here's our satellite just before the sun went down, showing the dry slot across Texas up into Arkansas and Missouri right there. And the upper level vortex has pushed out towards southern Kansas. So most likely our surface cold front is pushed out into Mississippi and Alabama. And very likely our warm front has made it up into the Great Lakes area, probably off the top of the map, out in this area here. And then probably an occlusion out into the Central Plains right there. Okay, before I go much further, let me take a look at the chat here. Okay, we got Justin Pulliam here and Mike Wan, Jason Deckman mentioning the sunshine there. Ryan Toomies has some friends there in Canton. And that's right down the road from us. And a couple people asked if I was going to chase that situation. And no way. This part of Texas is not a good place to storm chase. It's very humid air mass means very low cloud bases, haze, and of course lots of pine trees obscuring visibility from the road there. Funwood Tech is here, and Ryan Myers confirming very active weekend. Ryan mentions his friend's place of business missed the wedge tornado by 2 miles off Route 19 south of Highway 20. Yeah, Route 19, that's the main north-south road there through Canton. And I remember that they had a very active flea market there near downtown Canton. I don't know what shape that's in, but when I used to drive through there going to Oklahoma, I used to pass that market area, and it was usually pretty busy there. Ryan mentions the DPS building there. Across the street was almost wiped out. Cayo Delphi is here, and Mike Estwick, Sarah Wood. Rainy day there in Indiana. Mike reminding the like button and Patreon. I appreciate that, and there's the Patreon page there. Ryan mentions a good amount of power lines down out and many roads still blocked around town there in Canton. Mike says that the snow in Denver is gone. They got 5 inches there in Denver that melted less than 24 hours from the end of the event. It's hard to believe all that happened when it's almost, it's going to be May tomorrow. Michael Burrell planning to chase tomorrow in the southeast U.S. Cayo mentions the thunderstorm last night, and the weather app on his phone dropped the ball hard on the tornado warning. No tornado warnings from his phone there. Justin Pulliam was watching both of the storms, confirmed tornado warnings. And I'm just kind of skimming the messages here real quickly. Looks like Ryan mentioning most EF3 damage and some EF4 there from that tornado. 2 housing foundations completely swept clean. Cayo Delphi mentions the second time he's had to evacuate because of the cells that hit Fort Smith and Van Buren. And it's interesting, my great-grandmother lost her house back in the 1920s in the Fort Smith area from a tornado. I think she lived just across the border there around Sallisaw. And they ended up moving to the Ozarks. Mike says NAM3 tends to be a bit aggressive with moisture. It's definitely good to know there. Ron Chalfant asks where I am. I'm down in the Palestine area just south of Athens. And lost my place here for a minute. Cthulhu mentions those flowers there were Indian blanket flower. Mike says there's a Facebook and Google Plus community for this channel. I'm going to have to check that out. I had mentioned I'd planned on doing that a few days ago, but I got kind of sidetracked. But I will try to make it over there. But that's good to hear. I appreciate, definitely appreciate the fan involvement there. Okay, let's press on with the forecast here, and we'll take a look at the isobars and thickness. Looks like a pretty prominent thickness gradient there across Texas, Arkansas, New Mexico, Colorado. And that places the front in the Mississippi River area, just off the Gulf Coast, just south of Corpus Christi. So pretty much right there. And we've had plenty of time to lift that warm sector northward through the Ohio River area and up to the Great Lakes. So we do find that right around Chicago and Detroit. And the main baroclinic low is located right here over the Quad Cities area, around Peoria, around Quincy, Illinois. And then we have an inclusion back around to Des Moines and Omaha there. And here's the cold pool. So we've got a little bit of cold core shower activity over northern Oklahoma there and southern Kansas. And so the main area we're watching for convective weather is Alabama there, but we did see the tornado warnings or tornado watches drop off there on those last few SPC frames. Okay, we'll take a look at a sounding for this morning. For Alabama. I'll bring up the Birmingham sounding, and looks like April 31st is not a date that the system likes. So there we go, April 30th. And there we go, there's our sounding there for Birmingham. So we're showing pretty deep moisture there, starting from a surface dew point there of about 68 to 70. We've got a good 150 millibars of moisture, mostly in the mid-upper 50s all the way up. And if we modify that for afternoon conditions, maybe go with a high of 79, 78 or 79, that gives us an LFC right here. And then you can see that pretty strong cap there. All that is capping right there, and it's concentrated around 700 to 750 millibars. And we saw that on those SPC charts about 5 or 10 minutes ago. And above that, not a whole lot of instability. We're kind of missing some of the cool mid and upper level temperatures. But we've had most of the day to kind of change that, so it's possible that that is all dropped off a little bit during the day. Okay, and we'll take a look at Jackson, Mississippi. And we see a little bit less capping there, and kind of a strange feature here. This could be maybe the ascent of the radiosonde up into an anvil. I don't know exactly where the storms were at 7 in the morning relative to Mississippi, but plenty of moisture. If we lift that from 79, we do get a little bit of cape in this little area right here. And there's our capping right around 750 millibars. And plenty of strong winds, 55 knot low-level jet, and we've probably got just enough shear in there for tornadic storms. Okay, upper level dynamics, we'll check that out real quick. There's the chart for right now, 500 millibar heights and vorticity. So jet running from Austin, Texas to Shreveport and then up to Illinois. And you can see that we don't really have much in the way of short waves working on Mississippi and Alabama for today. So about the only thing to affect the weather, to affect the soundings in this area, would be height falls. And then it does look like, let's see here, yeah, it looks like overnight the system will start approaching that area and bringing those dynamics a bit closer for tomorrow. So this is tomorrow afternoon, and it does look like we've got a couple short waves working through Alabama. So that would probably act to maybe remove the cap over Georgia and Alabama. Okay, so I guess we can just go ahead and head on into the forecast. I guess we'll start with a high-resolution rapid refresh model and see what that shows. And I've got this centered a little bit to the east there. So anyway, this is showing that we will have a couple of MCSs moving across the south overnight. They'll be kind of breaking up, and then the high-resolution rapid refresh goes for a little bit of redevelopment south of Nashville, about 12 to 1 in the morning. And then it brings that eastward, and then we see some erosion of those cells towards dawn. So I'm not too sure how we're going to be looking for Georgia tomorrow afternoon. It depends on the extent of the convection we have overnight and how far south that makes it. If there's extensive convection overnight, then that would clear out a lot of this area. If not, then we'll have an air mass that's pretty primed for thunderstorms. Then let's take a look at the GFS here. I know everybody likes to look at the date and time, so I'm trying to fit that in. Okay, so there's the valid time there at the top left. Okay, so we start out and you see the very strong storm system across the central Mississippi Valley, warm front down into the Great Lakes, and then for tomorrow's webcast, the southeast will be on the tail end of that front. Then the warm front will be moving up through the New England area, made Bear Clinic low right there in upstate New York, and then the occlusion all the way back into the Lake Michigan area. So behind that, some cold advection. And then things starting to recover a bit in Texas, and you can see maybe some southerly flow starting up tomorrow night. Then for Tuesday's webcast, things will be pretty quiet. High pressure across the central Mississippi Valley and southeast. And we get some cyclogenesis here in West Texas and New Mexico. So that should help accelerate the wind flow in that area and allow for some frontogenesis right here in the Red River. So this time of year, that's probably going to be a pretty good trigger for thunderstorm activity. So we may see some storms start developing overnight, Tuesday night, and maybe some more Wednesday. Yeah, there they go over Oklahoma. The system progresses eastward on Wednesday, and that does look like it's got a cold front with it. So that'll be moving through East Texas during the morning hours. So probably not too much severe weather there. That'll be mostly in Louisiana for Wednesday afternoon. So another round there for Wednesday, Louisiana, Mississippi. Cold air advection behind the system. Things will be pretty quiet for a few days here. So Friday pretty quiet, and Saturday quiet also. We're not even tapping the Gulf very much. We're mostly tapping some downslope flow from Mexico. So kind of a mild, dry weekend. And we don't see much of a change until maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. But we do have to watch the high plains in this area here around Colorado and Kansas, because it doesn't take much moisture to get that going, especially this time of year. So that would probably be some of my targets here for any chase activity. Maybe hanging around Denver and Clayton, Amarillo, some of those areas. And it looks like the next system is coming in from California here. We've got a cold pool around Wednesday the 10th, right in this area here. And that makes its way across the Rockies, and rain chances start going up. Then we got a bit of a cold front pushing southward around midweek. Okay, then bringing it on up to the 15th and 16th. Pretty deep southerly flow in place, and looks like kind of a zonal pattern here. Maybe a few short waves working across the area around mid-month. And then we get to the end of the run, and that's probably about all I have. Okay, so one last check on the chat. Let me take a look at that. Justin mentions in Central Texas last night there were a few cells in the Austin area. And then the front came through uneventful. Watch was canceled. Yeah, we didn't see too much here either. But the winds were definitely gusting pretty heavy all day. 30 to 40 knots here. And Justin says that the Houston WFO said that the rapid southeasterly advance of the cold front is certainly doing a number on the potential convection this evening as it undercuts the line. Okay, that's about all I have for this evening. I appreciate you all watching, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good one.